From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Lana Summers. And I'm Elsa Chang. The psychologist Colton Scrivener
Didn't say anything, baby.
loves this time of year.
What?
I didn't say anything. I just said okay.
Surrounded by the Halloween spirit, if you will, right? My research is on horror movies and true crime and people who sort of are interested in the macabre, and I organize events that are like a horror film festival and a zombie crawl.
That's right, a zombie crawl, which happens every year where Scrivener lives, in Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Everyone dresses up as any kind of creative zombie that you could possibly imagine, and then they kind of go through the town, and there's a gelatin brain eating contest, and
yummy.
I got the better list yesterday.
Parade where
Blondie.
the zombies are kind of all in the front, and then
Eureka Springs
I
also
yesterday
happens to
too.
be home
Rolled
to a
over
famously
and
haunted hotel
laying on my
called the
feet
Crescent. So his town sort of is
everything else.
the home for a psychologist who studies the spooky and the scary. Scrivener has a new book about all that called Morbidly Curious. A scientist explains why we can't look away. And I asked him to start by telling me exactly how he defines morbid curiosity.
morbid curiosity is just an interest in or curiosity about things that are potentially dangerous. So the morbid descriptor doesn't mean the curiosity is bad.
Right.
It just means that the thing you are interested in is dangerous.
Got it. Like potentially
Serial killers or environmental disasters or ghosts or bodily injuries, any kind of thing that gives you information about something you wouldn't want to be exposed to.
Right. And you argue in this book that morbid curiosity is a healthy part of human nature, right?
Yeah, it can be, yes.
How so?
Well, historically it helped not just humans, but really any animal that is subject to dangers in their environment, which is every animal, right? Nature is a very scary place. It helped them survive because in order to effectively avoid dangers in your local environment, you need to know something about them, right? That's how you learn how to avoid them, learn how to circumvent them. And in humans, we have a very particular kind of morbid curiosity because we have stories and we have transmissible culture. So we can remove almost all of the costs of learning about something dangerous, because in nature it's very dangerous to learn about something dangerous.
Right.
If you're
to
a zebra,
approach the predator.
exactly. Yeah. There's a cost with that. With humans, we can kind of remove all of the costs, and it makes us the most morbidly curious creatures of all.
Okay, I want to talk about the paranormal because you talk about it in this book. You have even gone on a paranormal hunt of sorts at some old haunted mansion in Savannah, Georgia. And what I want to ask you is, you say that you don't believe in ghosts. So why even go on a hunt like this? Like, why entertain something that you as a scientist don't even buy?
Well, I mean, a good scientist should be willing to change their mind if they're presented with evidence.
Okay.
It would take quite a bit of shifting in my worldview for that to happen, but I'm open to it as a scientist. If I, had the evidence, I'm open to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen things that are difficult to explain. So in this hotel in Eureka Springs, the Crescent, I was there on an overnight ghost hunt one time, and we had these two little plastic
I gotta
cat
get
toys,
straight.
like little plastic balls with red button on top, and you push the button on and the cat hits it, it lights up, right?
Okay.
So
He's been
we put
building
these
them.
two balls on a bed in the supposedly most haunted room in the hotel, and then we kind of shook the bed to see how much would it take to get them to light up, like how much movement does it take, and it took quite a bit. We really had to kind of shake the bed.
Okay.
And then one of the paranormal investigators I was there with said, we've heard that this room, there's a spirit in this room. So we have these two balls here. The one on the left, we want you to use that for yes. And the one on the right, we want you to use that for no.
Oh my God, you made a Ouija board out of two balls.
made a
Cat
Ouija
toys.
board with cat toys, yes.
Oh my God.
And so the investigator said, we've heard that the ghost in this room is named Michael. If that's true, would you light up the yes ball? And there was like one beat, and the yes ball lit up without anybody moving.
Holy!
And then nothing else happened the rest of the night. That was the first thing we did.
That's a significant thing.
But it was a significant thing.
Colton Scrivener, how can you not believe in ghosts after that?
Well, yeah. So my body got chills, right? I did.
Sure.
I got goosebumps. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I didn't.
Physiologically, your body was on high alert.
Yes. And as I went in, obviously not. I went in skeptical, but not cynical, right? I was there to have fun, and nobody moved. It was dead silent, and there was just that 1 second beat, and then the yes ball lit up. And I don't have an explanation for that one.
And yet you refuse to believe in ghosts.
Well, it's not that I refuse to believe. It's that, in science you have these empirical findings that add up to create a theory,
Sure.
right?
And you need more findings.
Well, in order to create what's called like a paradigm shift into
Okay.
a new way that you understand the world, you got to have a lot of those findings that you can then tie together with string like a detective in a movie, you know.
Okay, so keep ghost
So
hunting.
keep ghost hunting.
All
yes,
right,
yes.
all right. So you point out in this book that there is a rise in true crime as a genre. Like there's more interest in it. We see it in books, we see it in podcasts, TV shows, etc. Why do you think that is? Like, what is that rise in interest in true crime tell us about humans or how society is changing? Does it tell us much?
Yeah. So we live in a world now where I live in a small town, so I know almost all of my neighbors, right? But I've lived in bigger cities. I lived in Chicago for 6 years. I didn't know the people who were next to me. So you don't know much about the people around you in our more modern society. And, you know, the world is pretty divisive right now. It's been more divisive, I think, in the past 5 to 10 years than it's ever been.
Well, I get her when she went to.
And I think
How's
that leads us to be suspicious
Pretty
of
nice.
people and suspicious of their motives, suspicious
Pretty
of
nice right now.
conspiracy, suspicious of people who might be planning something. And that triggers in us an interest in learning about the kinds of people who do that. And so you're also seeing a rise not just in true crime murder documentaries,
little
but
kids out of the trash.
conspiracy documentaries or people who maybe did something bad, but it wasn't violent bad in another kind of way. They schemed someone or they conned someone. And
That's
we're
right,
more
I need to take
interested
my shit out of
broadly in
here.
these people who are potentially planning or plotting to do something that would harm us in one way or another.
Gosh, now I'm thinking our rise in interest in true crime is just a symptom of a more divided, isolated, siloed society.
It could be.
That's not a good sign, Colton.
That's not a good sign. Fortunately, I think the interest in true crime itself and consuming it, doesn't seem to
What are
be
you doing,
associated with
Squirt?
anything bad. It's more of just like you said, a consequence
Let's
of
use your
what's
Bob
going on,
Blakely.
maybe.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's
Put the
almost
new one on
Halloween
it.
now. What happens
That's
at
fine.
the Scrivener house on Halloween? My imagination's going wild now.
Yeah.
What happens in Eureka Springs at the Scrivener
Well,
house?
Yeah, so Eureka Springs loves Halloween. And so last year, we bought
Better, baby?
2,000 pieces of candy. I live in a town of 2,000 people. Okay? So it's important to keep that in mind. We bought 2,000 pieces of candy and made sure kids only took 2 pieces when they came. And we ran out by like 5 p.m. It wasn't even dark yet.
Down you
That's a
go.
lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. So everybody comes in because it's a very old, spooky Victorian town. A lot of the houses are these big Victorian houses and everybody goes all out. We have a couple of 12-foot skeletons and we live on a dead end road and we have a skeleton up on the dead end sign.
Looking very dead.
It's exactly. And so yeah, this year we bought like 4,000 pieces of candy. We tried to double it to try to
We'll get to 7 p.m.
We'll get maybe to dusk at least. Yeah.
That sounds like a good time.
Yes.
Colton Scrivener is the author of a new book called Morbidly Curious. A scientist explains why we can't look away. Thank you so much for coming into NPR West today. This was so much fun.
It was a blast. Thank you.
You're listening to All Things Considered.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Focus Features with Begonia. 2 conspiracy-obsessed young men kidnap the CEO of a company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying Earth. Now playing in select theaters everywhere tomorrow. From Procter & Gamble, maker of ZzzQuil, with a range of products designed to relieve occasional sleeplessness to help people fall asleep. Learn more at ZzzQuil.com. From the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards of public service in journalism and cultural expression. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
This is CPR News, 89.5 FM KPRN Grand Junction, 88.3 FM KPRH Montrose, and 88.3 FM KPYR Craig. On translators in Gunnison, K210BS, Uray, K218BE, Parachute, K203FJ, Rangeley, K216BO, and Meeker, K216BP, and online at cpr.org.
Support comes from Kitchen Distributors, with Bulltop showrooms specializing in luxury kitchen architecture, dedicated to functionality and minimalistic modern design in Denver and Basalt, bulthaup.com/Denver.
Support comes from Step Denver, a nonprofit helping men who are homeless overcome addiction and get their life back. Same-day admission is provided for those who are ready and willing. Learn more at stepdenver.org.
A paramilitary group in Sudan has killed more than 460 people at a hospital and abducted the doctors who worked there.
They were very dedicated despite the difficulties that they are facing in their work, but they were very committed to the holy message.
It's All Things Considered from CPR News. I'm Nathan Fernando Frescas. Experts worry President Trump's National Guard deployments could fundamentally change the way the military is used on U.S. soil.
The subtext of Project 2025 is to take any and all steps at the executive level to root out illegal immigration.
Then, more than $13 million could go to mental health services in one Colorado county next year. That's if voters there pass a tax measure on the ballot.
We have to finally address a very large, very important, and very impactful unmet need in Boulder County.
It's 5 o'clock. The news is next.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. The leaders of the world's two biggest economies met in South Korea today. President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping talked tariffs, and while they didn't reach trade agreements, they did pause other concerns. NPR's Deepa Shivaram has more.
One is basically that China agreed to pull back on some of the limits they had put on rare earths exports. The other element was that China would resume buying soybeans from the U.S. immediately, and that's, of course, been a major issue for American farmers since China halted those shipments. And then the other thing is that Trump said, this is the big number part, that tariffs on China would be lowered from 57% to 47%.
NPR's Deepa Shivaram reporting from South Korea. Meanwhile, Trump ordered the Pentagon to start testing nuclear weapons immediately. Federal aid for the SNAP Hunger Relief Program runs out Saturday because of the federal government shutdown. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency, and she's promising to keep some food aid flowing. NPR's Brian Mann has more.
Speaking in Harlem, Hochul, a Democrat, said stopping aid for hunger relief would hurt farmers and food distributors as well as families and children. She called on the Republican-controlled Congress to use contingency funds before Saturday to keep SNAP food aid flowing.
The clock's going to run out on 42 million Americans, including 3 million New Yorkers. Apparently, our cries for help, their cries for help, have fallen on deaf ears.
As part of her emergency declaration, Hochul allocated $65 million in state money to support food banks and pantries. State agencies and schools will help distribute millions of meals. Republicans, meanwhile, have blamed Democrats in the Senate for delaying a new federal budget as part of a partisan standoff over health care subsidies. Brian Mann, NPR News, New York.
New proposals by the Department of Health and Human Services will dramatically restrict gender-affirming care for transgender youth. NPR's Selena Simmons-Duffin reports the rules are being prepared for release in early November.
The two proposed rules use Medicaid to try to force hospitals and doctors not to provide gender-affirming care for young people. One of the rules prohibits them from getting reimbursed for patients receiving this care who are covered by Medicaid. NPR obtained the draft text of this rule. The other rule is even more sweeping. It would make not providing gender-affirming care for youth a condition for a hospital to get Medicare and Medicaid payments at all. The new rules would not go into effect immediately, but there has already been a chilling effect on access to the care. Gender-affirming care, including puberty blockers, hormones, and rarely surgery, is not against any federal law, but it has been banned in 27 states in recent years. Selena Simmons-Duffin, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. futures contracts are trading higher at this hour. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include EBSCO, dedicated to empowering medical affairs teams with peer-reviewed research, AI-powered summaries, and tools for literature reviews. Learn more at ebsco.com. This is NPR.
This is CPR News. I'm Nathan Fernando Frescas. 5 men and a boy who died in an August accident at a Weld County dairy were killed by exposure to hydrogen sulfide gas. The deaths at Prospect Valley Dairy near Keensburg had long been suspected of being connected to the toxic gas. Those who died include a father and two of his sons, one of whom was in high school. Another man was related by marriage, and two other workers lived on the grounds of the farm. The determination by the Weld County coroner will add to an investigation by the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Casa Bonita's iconic cliff divers and costume performers are striking today. Their union says all 57 members will picket outside the Lakewood restaurant. They're pushing for higher wages and protesting what they call dramatic cuts to paid hours during the restaurant's Halloween Casa Bonita event. The restaurant just west of Denver says it values its staff but won't comment on ongoing negotiations. State lawmakers approved $10 million in emergency funding for Colorado food banks today. That's as the federal government shutdown continues. The money is a fraction of the roughly $120 million in SNAP benefits Coloradans stand to lose in November. Governor Polis requested the money last week. Overnight in Denver, expect mostly clear skies with a low around 31 degrees. Tomorrow, partly sunny and 51 degrees before cooling off on Friday night with a low around 28 degrees for Halloween. This is CPR News.
Support comes from the Gear Junction, retailers of new and used raft, bike, ski, and outdoor gear. From Trail Life Brewing, beer, cocktails, food, and community. And Stitches and Stuff, sewing handmade bags, straps, and custom gear for the river. All at 436 Main, Grand Junction.
Support comes from the Colorado Sun, a nonprofit newsroom bringing statewide coverage to Coloradans, focused on independent, nonpartisan journalism and shining light on Colorado's communities. coloradosun.com.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Culver City, California.
And I'm Juana Summers in Washington. The country is about a month into a government shutdown with the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, still at the center of the fight. Democrats are still holding out for a deal to extend the tax credits that help people pay for health care through the ACA exchanges, warning that without those subsidies, healthcare costs would skyrocket for tens of millions of people. People like Lynn Chernin from Tampa, Florida.
I had emergency gallbladder surgery, and I got a bill from the hospital for $85,000.
She got that bill while she was still on a private insurance plan, and she later switched to an ACA plan she's really happy with.
It's significantly better. I mean, the premiums are great. The copays are amazing. You know, I feel very, very lucky.
Same goes for Chernin's friend and former colleague Laura Reynolds, who also got on Obamacare this year.
Amazingly enough, it almost seems to cover better medication than my own insurance I was paying almost $1,000 a month for.
Yesterday, both women were able to get a look at their estimated costs for next year on the exchanges. And for Chernin,
my insurance premium would only be going up about $1 a month.
Reynolds, on the other hand, was shown an estimated premium of more than $450 a month. That is a huge jump because right now she has a $0 premium. But she says it's still doable in light of what she used to pay before Obamacare.
Because it's still less money than I was paying out of pocket through my own company that I was working for.
But there's still frustration for Reynolds, not due to costs, but the political fight over those costs. Her stepdaughter, a government worker, has been affected by the shutdown, a shutdown that persists as Democrats say they're fighting to keep health care more affordable for millions like her.
It is very upsetting that the one thing that is shutting our government down right now is the fact that they're arguing over health care. You know, when you're talking millions and millions of people who are on Marketplace, and then you have this small group of people who are determining our health and our future.
Cynthia Cox conducts research on the Affordable Care Act for KFF, a health information nonprofit, and she's here to break down where things stand. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, I know that KFF's research leading up to this week estimated that on average, most Americans would see what they're paying for their ACA health insurance more than double. The exact number was a 114% jump again on average. Now, in the past day of quote-unquote window shopping, is there any reason to believe that most people won't really see huge jumps in what they pay? I know that we heard from one person in Florida who told us that their costs are really not going up by all that much.
So these premiums are really based on a formula. What someone pays is a certain percent of their income. So for the vast majority of people who get a tax credit, it's actually really easy to figure out how much more they're going to have to pay. So really our estimate holds true that what people will pay will more than double on average. Of course, that's going to vary from person to person. Some people may not see much of a premium increase. Other people could see astronomical premium increases. But really, I think that the reality is that on average, people's cost are going to double. There are some things that people can do to mitigate those costs. There might be a way to switch a plan, for example, instead of getting a silver plan, someone might be able to get a bronze plan, which would have a lower premium, but it would have a much higher deductible. And so there certainly are trade-offs that people will have to consider.
Cynthia, I mean, it's unclear what will happen on Capitol Hill, but even if lawmakers do find a way to end the shutdown, they come up with another plan to extend Obamacare tax credits into next year. At this point, with no plan in place, is the damage sort of already done? Can people still hold out hope for some sort of deal to extend subsidies?
The longer this goes on, the more damage there could be. What the concern is from an insurer's perspective is that people are logging on now and shopping for plans, and they're going to see these big premium increases, and that might be enough to scare them away. That might be enough for them to just drop their health coverage. So that's what health insurers are concerned, that the healthier or younger people are going to be the ones that drop their coverage, and then they'll be left with a sicker average group of people who are signing up, meaning that their costs are higher and premiums have to go up even more. And also, just from a perspective of, if you want more people to have insurance, then you want them to have, full information of what their plans are actually going to be, how much their costs are going to be for next year. At the same time, though, there's still time for Congress to make a change if they do decide to extend the tax credits. Although people are able to shop right now, the tax credits do not actually expire until the end of the calendar year. So if Congress were to act before December 31st, then the enhanced tax credits could still go into effect in January.
So say you're a person who's out there beginning to shop for ACA marketplace insurance next year. What advice would you give them right now?
If it were me, I would honestly wait a few weeks to shop. There still is some possibility that there could be a deal made, and probably shopping over the Thanksgiving holiday is fine. That should give you enough time to, look at your options and sign up for coverage. It's probably a good idea to decide on what your health plan is going to be before December 15th so that you can lock that plan in to start January 1st. Usually that's when you have to make a decision for coverage that starts January 1st. But if you wait a couple more weeks, you should still have enough time to sign up. That being said, if you think you're going to need someone to help you through the process, like an insurance agent or broker or a health insurance navigator, then start trying to make that contact and those appointments now, because these folks are going to be very busy this year.
Cynthia Cox, Vice President and Director of the Program on the Affordable Care Act for the nonprofit KFF. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
President Trump's National Guard deployments are not random. The president's inner circle, and at times Trump himself, have talked explicitly and publicly about them for years. Experts worry that these deployments could fundamentally change the way the military is used on U.S. soil. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf has more.
Back in 2023, Stephen Miller went on the late Charlie Kirk's popular conservative podcast.
Joining us now is Stephen Miller. Stephen, we have a lot of questions, not a lot of time. I know you
talk about his plan for tackling illegal immigration if Trump won another term as president. Miller was a senior advisor for Trump in his first term. On the podcast, Miller describes sweeping immigration raids and mass deportations.
And in terms of personnel, you go to the red state governors and you say, give us your National Guard. We will deputize them as immigration enforcement officers.
Miller doesn't specify how that would be legal. Under U.S. law, the military can't broadly be used for policing domestically. But he continues.
The Alabama National Guard is going to arrest illegal aliens in Alabama, and the Virginia National Guard in Virginia.
For blue states who don't comply, he says, you simply send in the Guard from a nearby red state. In recent months, the Trump administration has deployed National Guard troops to states against the wishes of their Democratic governors to protect federal immigration facilities and officers. Those deployments are tied up in court challenges. On the 2024 campaign trail, Trump talked repeatedly about his intent to carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. In an interview with Time magazine, Trump affirmed his commitment to Miller's plan to use the National Guard to help. When Trump was elected to another term, he made Miller his right-hand man on immigration.
Trump was deeply deferential to Stephen, and I think you've seen that with a vastly more empowered Stephen Miller in a second term.
Miles Taylor was chief of staff in the Department of Homeland Security during Trump's first term. He has since become a vocal critic of the president.
At the time, Trump wasn't talking about those things publicly.
But Taylor says plans for using the National Guard for immigration were talked about behind closed doors during the first administration.
I can remember in meetings with him in the Oval Office or on Air Force One or at the border, him starting to bring up this idea of using the United States military to solve the problem.
It wasn't something Trump just talked about. In 2017, the Associated Press reported on a DHS memo it obtained, outlining a draft proposal to use the National Guard to round up unauthorized immigrants throughout the U.S. At the time, the White House denied it, saying there was no such plan. Taylor says there very much was.
But it was much more specific than that. It was the invocation of the Insurrection Act to deputize the military to enforce domestic law, to basically become a domestic police force.
Trump invoking the Insurrection Act would legally allow for the military to act as police on U.S. soil, to carry out immigration enforcement, but possibly other enforcement too, according to legal experts. NPR contacted the White House for this story. Spokesperson Abigail Jackson said the administration is committed to restoring law and order. She also called Taylor a hack, but did not directly address NPR's question about deputizing the Guard for law enforcement. These ideas are also embedded in Project 2025, a conservative action plan written by the Heritage Foundation. Trump has incorporated many of its policies into his second administration.
No.
The report's architect is the head of the White
No.
House's Office of Management and Budget.
I mean, the subtext of Project 2025 is to take any on all steps at the executive level to go into cities and states to enact the priority, which is to root out illegal immigration.
Matt Dallek is a professor at the George Washington University who studies the American conservative movement.
So Project 2025 opens the door to the deployment of the National Guard in a place like Chicago without explicitly calling for it to be deployed.
Project 2025 only mentions the National Guard a handful of times. Dallek says that while the Trump administration has implemented many parts of the project, it's also gone farther.
Beyond what's explicitly recommended there, and has used its power very creatively and also, I think, quite lawlessly in ways that the project does not explicitly call for.
In recent weeks, Trump has been talking about the Insurrection Act a lot, not just about immigration enforcement. Trump has talked about invoking it to send the National Guard and possibly other troops to quell violent crime and protests in places like Portland, Chicago, San Francisco. That has people like Miles Taylor particularly concerned.
And all of a sudden, we're not talking about immigration. We're talking about sending in the United States military to go against American citizens.
Legal experts worry about what that could look like, especially with the 2026 midterm elections and the possibility that U.S. troops could be present as voters cast ballots. Kat Ronsdorf, NPR News, Washington.
I didn't say anything, baby. There's a radio. I didn't say anything.
All things considered from NPR News.
If you've looked for
More
new
petrified wood.
TV lately, the number of pixels a screen has is touted as a pretty big deal. But those pixels might not actually translate to a better viewing experience. Find out why next on All Things Considered. This is CPR News. I'm Nathan Fernando Frescas. There's a wide range of beliefs when it comes to how the public perceives President Trump's immigration crackdown.
It is, in a lot of ways, much worse than what I had anticipated.
And where you live probably has an influence on your own opinion. Hear what some Coloradans are saying at 5:44. Expect mostly clear skies overnight in Grand Junction with lows in the 30s, and tomorrow gradual clearing with a high around 57 degrees. This is CPR News. It's 5:19.
Support comes from Pinnacle Assurance. Pinnacle has offered workers' comp protection to Colorado for over 100 years. Their safety, claims, and return to work teams help support a healthy workforce where businesses can thrive. Pinnacle.com.
Police caught a
thief using footage from the growing network of blazing birds surveillance cameras.
I have you on camera.
But the accused had a camera too, and it showed a different story. More on the Colorado Today podcast.
Public radio doesn't thrive without the public, without you. Thank you for supporting CPR. Your investment in the shows and fact-based news reporting you trust is what makes it all possible.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Fidelity Investments. A dedicated advisor can help build a comprehensive wealth plan. Learn more at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity a business made for food, designed to help organizations order food for meetings and events from restaurants nationwide, set up employee lunch programs, and manage food spend at easycater.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Juana Summers.
And I'm Elsa Chang. It's time now for our Science News Roundup from Shortwave, NPR's science podcast. I'm joined by the show's two hosts, Regina Barber and Emily Kwong. Hey to both of you.
Hey. Hey, Elsa.
Hey, okay, so you have brought us 3 science stories, as you always do, stories that caught your attention this week. What are they?
We have for you how spiders add decorations to their webs.
Ooh. Plus, why more pixels on your HD TV might not make a difference.
And how different kinds of stories change your brain.
Ooh, okay.
Let's take spider webs first, just in time for Halloween. Yes, I want to talk about orb webs. That's the spider web that looks like a wheel with concentric circles of silk on the spokes. Yes.